Illiterate Manga Club.
Hey yo, welcome to Illiterate Manga Club. It's your boy, Manga Nick. So today I wanted to talk about a manga that I've been reading called Akane-Banashi. It is about Rakugo, the Japanese performative art that involves one person on a stage portraying multiple different characters. And just depending on the kind of person you are, you either hear that and think, oh, that sounds cool, or you hear it and you go, what? Wait, how do you make a manga out of that? But essentially, how I would describe Akane-Banashi is it's a sort of theatrical, character-driven, competitive drama. Think kind of like a sports anime or manga, but instead of competing in sports ball or whatever, they're competing in Rakugo competitions and doing performances to try to make it to the top of the Rakugo world. The plot centers around Akane, who is a great main character, by the way. I'll be talking about her more in a little bit. And her journey into the world of Rakugo to avenge her father. Essentially, Akane's dad decided to pursue Rakugo as a profession instead of something, like, normal. And really looked up to her dad as well as his Rakugo. When her dad attends an event to be promoted to a Shinichi, essentially the highest rank a Rakugo performer can be, he is unceremoniously expelled. Thus, Akane begins her journey to make it to the very top of the Rakugo world, in order to prove the merit of her father's performance. One of the strongest aspects of the story is honestly just learning about Rakugo itself. I think Rakugo is kind of in an interesting position culturally where a lot of people probably at least have a vague idea of what it is. You've probably seen it in a video game or an anime or something, but you probably don't really know too much about it, right? So it strikes a good balance between being something that's kind of just foreign enough, but not to the point where it feels like you're kind of wandering into uncharted territory. And even if you've literally never heard of it in your life, the story does a really good job easing you into Rakugo, what it is, some of the cultural history behind it, some of the philosophy that goes into it, the terminology that's involved, and it just feels like a real love letter to this admittedly pretty niche subject. I'd imagine in Japan, people are a little bit more familiar with this kind of stuff, but especially I'd say most Westerners are like, well, I don't know anything about what the fuck a Rakugo is. But that's part of why I'd say it's worth reading. It's a sort of educational experience in a way. It's an opportunity to learn about something that I don't think you probably would have had too much interest in learning about otherwise. And I think it helps it sort of being wrapped up into this like competitive, almost sometimes tournament drama. Since there's various characters at kind of various levels of proficiency, all competing and trying to learn more about this art form. And I think part of what makes it interesting is that Rakugo is something that's very subjective. It's performative, right? It's like a theater play. It's not like watching a game of basketball, for example, where the guys who score higher won, and that's kind of that. No, there's a lot more room for interpretation and a lot more kind of nuance that goes into these performances. Sometimes the results are just based on the audience's reaction, sometimes there's an actual panel of judges. And oftentimes, the lessons that Akane learns are just as interesting, if not more interesting, than the actual performances. I love Akane. I think she's great. She's definitely one of my new favorite female manga leads. First of all, I just really like her design. It's simple, but pretty recognizable. I really like her solid black hair and just the little pink tufts at the end. But Akane is also just a really solid character. Honestly, I think I could devote an entire video just to talking about her, but one thing that I really like about Akane is that she manages to strike a really good balance between being talented but still having a lot to learn. A lot of main characters in manga tend to have this problem where they're prodigies and they're just too good, right? Whether it's he is the strongest guy ever because he was born that way, or he is the greatest master of this game to ever live and he is only 3 years old. This is something that's admittedly kind of difficult to balance. Like, you want your protagonist to be enough of an everyman to be relatable, but you also want him to be, like, powerful, I guess, enough in the story to be useful or interesting. So admittedly, it's a pretty tough sort of balancing act, but I think Akane pretty much nails it. Akane is gifted at Rakugo, but it never reaches a point where it feels like she's just some miracle wonder child. Plus, she kind of has the experience to back it, like she's been watching her dad do Rakugo since she was little, and she's also been getting lessons from her father's Rakugo teacher, Master Shiguma. So it's not like she just came out the gate swinging and was immediately the best at this ever. And so even though Akane has kind of a mixture of natural talent and acquired skill, she still has a lot to learn, and this is probably my favorite thing about the character. It's just watching her go through these various lessons and learning how to improve herself and her Rakugo. One benefit of making a manga like this, which is based on sort of subjective competitions, is that it's a lot harder to just do these sort of like objective power-ups. It's not like in a lot of other shonen battle manga, for example, where a guy goes to train and now he's just stronger. No, Akane more so has to learn lessons about mentality. For example, there's a couple of chapters where she works at a restaurant in order to learn how to suit the customer's own needs. She then learns to apply this in her next Rakugo performance, and learns a valuable lesson that the performance is supposed to be for the audience, not for her. It all comes together to make Akane a really great character. I think she kind of just has it all going on. She's just enough of an everyman to be relatable, she's just talented enough to be interesting, and it doesn't feel like the world of the story revolves around her. There are many other Rakugo performers out there, many of whom are far better than she is. So she definitely has an uphill battle ahead of herself. Even though Akane is definitely my favorite, there's a couple of other characters I'm attached to. My second favorite is definitely Karashi Nerimaya. He has this sort of sliminess to him that I kind of like. He's definitely not evil, he's not like a malicious figure, but he definitely kind of thinks that he's the top dude. He's very sarcastic, sort of has an arrogant streak, but at the end of the day, he's a decent dude and he's willing to help out others when they ask. There's a couple other characters I like, but those two are definitely my favorites. If I have one sort of complaint about the manga is that there's definitely a sort of shortage of characters I'm all that into. There's a pretty solid handful of characters in the manga, but a lot of them only make very sporadic appearances. So even though there's probably a couple of characters I would have been more attached to if we spent more time with them, we kinda just don't, which is sort of a shame. Of course, I have to give my compliments to the excellent art. Akane-Banashi is a manga with 2 authors. The story is being done by Yuki Suenaga, and the art is being done by Takamasa Moe. Their art is fantastic. I think they were definitely the perfect pick for a manga like this. Since Rakugo relies so much on changing expressions, it was really important to get that aspect down, and I think they absolutely kill it. They do such an amazing job drawing all these funny, weird faces for the characters, and they really nail the feeling that this is the same person doing multiple different weird faces, to the point where even though you could tell it's obviously the same guy, the energy they capture is just totally different. Whether it's shady, to seductive, to energetic, to dopey, the range of expressions really does run the gambit. And when you're caught up in the moment reading the Rakugo performances, sometimes you forget that you're even reading a manga to begin with. I also love seeing all the various colored pieces they sometimes include at the start of chapters or with the volumes. I really love their use of colors and just like the fashion on display. The art is awesome, I'm a big fan. So yeah, I think Akane-Banashi is great. I think it comes highly recommended to anybody who's just looking for something kind of different. It's quite unlike any manga that's in Shonen Jump, and to be honest, I'm kind of surprised it's managed to last this long in the magazine. Surviving in Shonen Jump can be kind of rough. Like, there's a lot of series in the manga that end up getting canceled within a couple of months. So I think the fact that this one managed to last with such a sort of weird concept is pretty commendable. But honestly, that's probably part of the reason why it survived so long. It's just the fact that it's different. It has a great appeal to a certain niche of people that are always going to come back week after week to read it. So I'd say consider checking it out and entering the world of Rakugo with me. It's got a great main character, some beautiful art, a really unique concept about a pretty fresh subject matter. Definitely worth checking out. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you on the next Illiterate Manga Club.